Youngkin defeats McAuliffe in race for Virginia governor. The Fox News decision desk can now project that Republican Glenn Youngkin will win the gubernatorial race in Virginia, defeating former Democratic Gov. Terry McAuliffe in a statewide election with national implications that McAuliffe was once expected to win. Youngkin ran a disciplined campaign, focusing on taxes, crime, and holding public schools accountable to parents, while McAuliffe spent much of his firepower the past couple of months linking Youngkin to former President Donald Trump. "Alrighty, Virginia, we won this thing," Youngkin told supporters in his victory speech a little after 1 a.m. Wednesday, and he vowed that together, "We will change the trajectory of this Commonwealth." 2 months ago, McAuliffe held a mid-single-digit lead in a state that Biden won by 10 points over then-President Trump just a year ago. But Youngkin erased the former governor's advantage in the closing stretch of the campaign. We are also watching the gubernatorial results in the blue state of New Jersey. With Virginia's gubernatorial race considered a key bellwether ahead of next year's midterm elections, Youngkin's victory in a state where Republicans hadn't won statewide in a dozen years will only increase Democratic anxieties as they try to defend their razor-thin House and Senate majorities in 2022. Youngkin, a first-time candidate and former private equity CEO, won thanks to a wave of Republican voter enthusiasm and by tapping into the anger of parents over decisions by their local school boards. And he touted that a campaign that came from nowhere turned into a movement. Youngkin made major gains among suburban voters, who fueled the 2018 blue wave that helped the Democrats win back the House and Biden's presidential victory over Trump 1 year ago. McAuliffe underperformed Biden in Virginia's suburbs. Most glaring was Northern Virginia's Loudoun County, ground zero for the education culture wars, which Biden carried by 25 points a year ago, but McAuliffe won by just over 10 points. "I've just felt this great surge of momentum for the last 6 to 8 weeks," Youngkin emphasized at a polling station in Chantilly, Virginia early on Election Day. The former governor had been battling complacency among Democratic voters who may be demoralized by Biden's flagging poll numbers and frustrated with the current lack of progress by the president and congressional Democrats on their social spending and human infrastructure measure and other top priorities. Virginia and New Jersey are the only 2 states to hold gubernatorial races in the year after a presidential election, guaranteeing they both grab outsized attention, and both states have a tradition of voting against the gubernatorial nominee of the party that won the White House the previous year. While neither the president nor the former president were on the ballot, Biden and Trump were front and center in the race. A Democratic defeat in Virginia in the first major election during Biden's tenure in the White House serves as a major political setback for a president who's already endured a very rocky late summer and autumn. McAuliffe, hoping to fire up Democrats, brought in his party's biggest stars to join him on the campaign trail, and the former governor hasn't wasted an opportunity at his events, in his interviews, and in his campaign statements and ads to link Youngkin to Trump, who's endorsed the GOP nominee. Youngkin's entire campaign has been a full embrace of Donald Trump's dangerous extremism, divisive culture wars, racist dog whistles, and bigotry. McAuliffe charged on Monday. The strategy was simple. During his years in the White House, Trump was a lightning rod that ignited Democratic turnout. McAuliffe's hoping for a repeat performance in a state where polls indicate the former president remains very unpopular with Democrats and independent voters. But in the end, it wasn't successful. While careful not to turn off Trump's base of voters, Youngkin's kept the former president at an arm's length during the general election campaign and didn't take part in a Trump tele-rally on the candidate's behalf on election eve, as Youngkin caught up with McAuliffe in public opinion polling this autumn. Helping to fuel his surge was the combustible issue of education and schools. "I'm on the side of the parents and children and teachers, and I think this has become the big issue in this race," Youngkin stressed Tuesday on Fox News America's Newsroom. Public school education has traditionally been a leading issue in gubernatorial contests across the country, but amid a year and a half of frustration over school closures and mask mandates due to the coronavirus pandemic, and the push by conservatives nationwide to target race-focused curriculum, including this year's well-publicized battles in Loudoun County over critical race theory, which isn't taught in the state's public schools. Republicans now see education and parents' rights as a winning issue to try and recapture suburban voters who fled the GOP during Trump's White House tenure. An unforced error by McAuliffe further fueled the GOP fire as Republicans spotlighted a clip from the second and final debate between the two candidates where the former governor said, "I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach." In the weeks after the clip went viral, polls in Virginia showed education surging to become the second most pressing issue on the minds of voters, and the same surveys indicated that McAuliffe, who kicked off his gubernatorial campaign in a public school in Richmond as he spotlighted his education proposals, had lost his advantage on the issue. Thanks to Youngkin's win, expect his push to stand up for parents to be a blueprint for the GOP as the party aims to win back both houses of Congress in next year's midterms. "I think it's clearly going to be a big issue," said Rick Scott of Florida, the chair of the National Republican Senatorial Committee, told Fox News last week. While it's dangerous to read too much into the results in Virginia, the state has a history of voting against the gubernatorial nominee of the party that captured the White House the preceding year. McAuliffe broke that streak in 2013 when he won his first term as governor the year after Obama was re-elected as president. Virginia state law prevents governors from serving consecutive terms. McAuliffe's 2013 gubernatorial victory didn't foreshadow the GOP's red wave in the 2014 midterms, when they recaptured the Senate, but former Republican Gov. Bob McDonnell's 2009 victory in Virginia, a year after Obama captured the White House, did precede the GOP tidal wave of 2010 when the party retook the House, and Democratic Gov. Ralph Northam's victory in 2017, a year after Trump won the presidency, teed up the Democrats' blue wave in the 2018 midterms when they convincingly won back the House majority. Most Virginia voters have an unfavorable view of Biden. Fox News survey. A Fox News voter analysis survey from the Virginia gubernatorial election shows the majority of voters have an unfavorable view of President Biden. According to the survey, 51% of voters said they had an unfavorable view of Biden, while 48% said had a favorable view of the president. Of the 51% of voters who had an unfavorable view of the president, 90% voted for Republican gubernatorial candidate Glenn Youngkin and 10% voted for Virginia's former Democratic Gov. Terry McAuliffe. Of the 48% who hold a favorable view of Biden, 92% supported McAuliffe and 7% supported Youngkin. Additionally, 43% of voters said they disapprove strongly with the way Biden has handled his job as president, compared to 23% who approve strongly. The Fox News survey was based on interviews with over 2,500 voters in Virginia. Youngkin and McAuliffe headed into Tuesday's election at a near deadlock, with Youngkin beginning his campaign polling far behind McAuliffe, but closing the gap in the final week of the election. Biden carried the Commonwealth of Virginia by 10 points in November 2020,